think you're tough? Come on, show me what you got!
I trained them. I trained the men you feared. Now you face me.
The little girl hit the mat first. Not because anyone threw her there. She launched herself between the woman in the black belt and the quiet man she had just challenged. Tiny arms spread, tears already running down her face. "Don't make my dad fight," she screamed. "The last time he did, my mom never came home." The whole gym went still. You could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. You could hear someone in the back set down a water bottle. And standing there in the center of Riverside Combat Academy, Lena Ortiz felt every eye in the room swing from the crying child to the man she'd called out in front of everyone. If stories like this hit something deep in you, subscribe, like the video, and stay with me to the end, because this one doesn't let go once it starts. Lena had asked for volunteers. It was supposed to be a simple Saturday self-defense seminar. Packed room, nervous beginners, a few local moms, college girls, 2 office workers still wearing their ID badges. Cameras up for the gym's page. Good energy, strong turnout. Then a quiet single dad in the back made one mistake. He corrected her. Not loudly, not with attitude. He didn't walk onto the mat or puff his chest out like the usual men who wandered into women's classes with something to prove. He simply caught his daughter's dropped jacket, glanced at the wrist lock Lena was demonstrating, and said in a calm voice, "If she turns her hips like that, she'll tear her own knee before she breaks the grip." That was it. But every woman on the mat looked at him, and Lena hated that she hesitated for half a second. Because part of her knew he was right. Pride did the rest. "Then come show us," she'd said. He shook his head immediately. "No." "Why not?" "Because I'm here for my daughter." Or because it's easier to critique than step in. A few people laughed. Not cruelly, just enough. The man looked down at the little girl beside him. She was maybe 8, big brown eyes, backpack with a chipped keychain hanging off the zipper. She tugged his sleeve. "Dad." "It's okay," he murmured. But Lena had already stepped back to make space. 30 seconds, she said. "That's all. If I'm doing it wrong, educate me." He didn't move. The room changed then. That strange kind of silence when a crowd decides it wants blood, even if it doesn't realize it yet. He set his daughter's backpack down carefully. "Please," he said, barely above a whisper. "Don't do this in front of her." That should have ended it. It didn't. Maybe it was the long week. Maybe it was the memory of too many men smirking through too many years, acting like she only knew what she knew because somebody let her. Maybe it was the old bruise in Lena's chest that had never really become a scar. "You started this," she said. His face changed. Not dramatically. No anger, no panic. Just something sinking inside him, like he had heard those words before and already knew how badly they could end. He stepped onto the mat. Lena moved first. Quick, clean. One hand reaching for the wrist, one foot angling outside, exactly the kind of pressure sequence she'd used 1,000 times. And in the instant before contact, his body shifted. A half step. That was all. No explosion, no macho counter, no flashy move. He turned his shoulder just enough to take away her leverage, lowered his center of gravity, and with 2 fingers touched the inside of her elbow so precisely that Lena felt her entire structure disappear. Her feet slid. Her balance went. For one humiliating second, she knew with total certainty that if he wanted to, He could put her flat on her back without using any real force at all. Then the girl screamed and threw herself between them. Now she was clutching the front of her father's jeans, shaking so hard she could barely stand. The man dropped to one knee instantly. "Hey," he said, voice breaking in a way that startled Lena more than the counter had. "Daisy, Daisy, look at me! Look at me! I'm right here!" The little girl grabbed his face with both hands. "You promised." "I know." "You promised you wouldn't do that anymore." "I know, baby." Lena stood frozen while everyone watched this man comfort a child like he was trying to hold together something already cracked down the middle. He lifted Daisy into his arms. She buried her face in his neck. Then he looked at Lena. Not furious, not embarrassed, just tired. The kind of tired that lives in the bones. "I was right about the knee," he said softly. "You're turning too early." And he walked out. No one said a word until the front door shut behind him. Then the room erupted. "What was that? Who even is he?" "Coach, are you okay?" Lena answered none of them. Because she wasn't thinking about how easily he had taken her off balance. She was thinking about the way his daughter had said the last time he fought, her mother never came home. And for the first time all day, Lena's anger gave way to something colder. Curiosity. That night, she watched the seminar footage 3 times. On the 4th replay, she slowed it down. There it was. That half step. Minimal. Surgical. So small most people would miss it. But Lena didn't miss things like that. Not anymore. Not after building her entire life on reading intention one shoulder twitch at a time. He wasn't some random dad with good instincts. He was trained. Deeply trained. And worse, he had controlled himself. A dangerous man trying to prove he was dangerous would have launched her, humiliated her, put on a little show for the room. This man had done the opposite. He'd removed her balance and stopped. That kind of restraint only came from one of 2 places: discipline or guilt. Around midnight, when she was locking up, she found the note jammed under the door. "You brought the ghost into the light." No name, no signature, just those words. The hairs on the back of her neck lifted. She stepped outside immediately, scanning the empty parking lot. A few cars, streetlight flickering at the corner. Her reflection in the dark windows of the laundromat across the street. Then she saw the slash in her front tire. Clean cut, deep. She turned slowly, heart hammering now. And for one ugly second, she was 26 again. Pressed against cold concrete in a parking garage, while 3 laughing men blocked the only exit. She forced the memory down. Back inside, she checked the exterior camera. At 10:43 p.m., 2 men in hoodies came into frame. One looked toward the lens, the other crouched by her tire. Before leaving, the taller one pointed at the gym door and made a small bowing gesture. Not to the building, to the person inside it. From the elementary school. He sat alone in a back booth, with a black coffee gone cold, and a children's lunchbox beside him. He looked like he hadn't slept. There was a split in the skin across his knuckles that hadn't been there yesterday. When Lena slid into the seat across from him, his eyes flicked to the window first. Always checking exits. "You need better people following you," he said. "I wasn't following you." "No?" "No." She leaned in. "Someone slashed my tire and left a note after you walked into my gym. So let's try again. Who are you?" He stared at her for a moment, like he was deciding whether honesty would help or bury them both. Then he asked, "Did anyone touch you?" Her jaw tightened. Not this time. Something dark moved behind his eyes. "Pull your late classes for a week. You don't get to tell me what to do. Lock your doors anyway. Not until you explain." The waitress came by with coffee. He thanked her, waited until she left. Then he said, "Have you ever spent years trying to bury a version of yourself so your child never has to meet him?" Lena didn't answer. He looked out the window again, toward the school. "I'm that," he said. "Or I was." "That doesn't explain the note." "No," he said quietly. "It explains why you got it." Before she could press him, his face changed. A black SUV had rolled slowly past the diner, not stopping, just slow enough. Eli stood immediately, grabbed the lunchbox, dropped cash on the table, and looked at Lena in a way that made her pulse kick. "If they're here for me, they'll watch the people I touch. So listen very carefully. Do not post your class schedule. Do not go home alone tonight. And if a man named Damon Vale says my name like he knows me," he paused, "run." Then he was out the door. Lena sat there with cold coffee in front of her and a name in her head she hadn't heard in 4 years. Damon Vale. Her fingers went numb. Because fear is a strange thing. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it recognizes a voice before your mind does. Damon Vale, one of the men from before. One of the men who used to stand outside underground fight venues with blood on his shoes and a smile that never reached his eyes. One of the men who followed her ex-boyfriend Kyle like wolves orbiting bad meat. One of the men who laughed while her younger sister Mari cried in the passenger seat and said maybe they should teach both girls some loyalty. Lena had spent years building muscles over that memory. Years building a life where no man got to make her feel small again. And now the quiet single dad with sad eyes and a terrified daughter had spoken that name like a warning. She spent the rest of the day digging. The internet didn't give much. Men like Damon Vale rarely left neat trails. But local archives did. Old articles, community pages. A photo from 9 years earlier of a youth combat program called Iron Haven. The founder stood in the center, younger, broader, less haunted. Elias Mercer. Same eyes, same face, same man. Around him were 6 teenage boys in cheap gloves and mismatched gear. Boys from rough streets, the article said. Boys learning discipline, focus, accountability. Lena felt the blood drain from her face when she recognized 2 of them. Damon Vale, Reese Carter. Men she had spent years being afraid would find her alone. Eli Mercer had trained them, not just known them, not just crossed paths with them, trained them. That afternoon she waited outside the school. Daisy came out first, smiling at something another little girl said. Then she saw Lena and the smile vanished. She shrank closer to her father's side. Eli noticed Lena immediately. "Daisy, go wait by the bench." The little girl hesitated. "Dad?" "Now, baby." She obeyed, but she kept looking back. Lena walked up so fast she almost didn't feel her feet. "You trained him." Eli said nothing. "You trained Damon Vale." Still nothing. "And Reese. and half the animals that used to run with Kyle. Do you know what they did to women? Do you know what they— Yes. The word cut through her. Not loud. Worse. Certain. Yes, he repeated. Then how dare you come into my gym? He took it without flinching. Every word, every piece of venom. How dare you bring your daughter around women who are trying to heal from men exactly like the ones you built? At that, something finally cracked in his face. Not anger. Pain. The honest kind. The ugly kind. The kind people can't fake because it costs too much to hold. I didn't build what they became, he said. You gave it hands. He looked toward Daisy on the bench. She was pretending not to watch, which somehow made it worse. When he spoke again, his voice was almost gone. I gave hungry boys a place to sleep on the mats when they had nowhere else to go. I gave them rules. I gave them structure. I gave them food before I gave them drills. He swallowed. And I buried more nights than you can imagine, trying to figure out where I lost them. Lena laughed once. Hard. Bitter. Oh, that makes it better. No, he said. It doesn't. She wanted him to fight back, wanted him to defend himself so she could hate him cleanly. Instead, he just stood there, carrying guilt like it belonged to him. Don't bring Daisy back, Lena said. Daisy had heard enough. Dad, she whispered. Eli closed his eyes. Then he walked to his daughter, crouched in front of her, and zipped up her jacket with shaking hands. We're leaving, he said. Daisy looked up at him. Did you do something bad? That question hit harder than anything Lena had said. Eli tried to answer. Couldn't. Tried again. I did something I'm still paying for. Daisy took his hand. Small fingers. Blind trust. And Lena watched them walk away, telling herself she'd done the right thing. That lasted until 3 nights later, when Damon Vale walked into her gym smiling. It was near closing, half the lights off, rain on the windows. Lena was putting gloves away when the front door opened and 3 men stepped in without asking. Damon was older now, broader, beard trimmed close, expensive coat. Same dead eyes. His gaze moved around the room like he was checking if it still smelled the way fear used to. Coach Ortiz, he said. Heard you met my old teacher. Lena's body went ice cold, but she didn't step back. You need to leave. Damon smiled wider. There he is. Lena turned. Eli was standing in the doorway behind them, soaked from the rain, one hand still on the doorframe as if he'd come in fast enough to break it. For the first time since she'd met him, he didn't look tired. He looked dangerous. Damon spread his hands. Relax. I just came to say hello. Eli's voice came out flat. You don't say hello. You circle. The other 2 men shifted uneasily. That was when Lena understood something that tightened every muscle in her back. They weren't here just to threaten him. They were afraid of him. Not the way prey fears a predator. The way bad men fear the one person who remembers what they were before they learned how to hide it. Damon chuckled. You vanished for years, Coach. No call, no warning. Then some video pops up online of a black belt beauty trying to drag you onto a mat. He tilted his head. Didn't think you had that much vanity left. Lena's stomach dropped. the seminar clip. Someone had posted it. Damon stepped closer to her. "Ask him," he said, almost gently, "what he taught us when the doors were locked." Lena looked at Eli. He didn't blink. "I taught boys how to protect themselves." Damon's smile faded. "And how to break a kneecap with one turn of the hip. Don't get noble now." The room felt smaller. Rain hammered harder against the glass. Lena said, "Why are you here?" Damon answered without looking at her. "Because ghosts belong to the people they haunt." Eli moved then, one step forward. The two men with Damon immediately tensed. Not because he'd attacked, because they thought he might. That told Lena more than any confession could. Damon saw it too. "Still got them jumping." He looked almost amused. "Funny, isn't it? You made us, but somehow we're the ones who kept what you taught." "You kept the violence," Eli said. "You lost the spine." The smile vanished completely. For one electric second, Lena thought Damon would swing. Instead, he leaned in and whispered something only Eli heard. Whatever it was, the color drained from Eli's face. Then Damon looked at Lena again and said, "Careful who you banish from your gym, coach. Some men carry wolves behind them." He walked out laughing. The moment the door shut, Lena said, "What did he say?" Eli didn't answer. "What did he say?" He finally looked at her. "He knows where Daisy sleeps." That should have been the moment Lena stopped making him the villain. But hurt people don't turn that cleanly. They twist first. She went digging deeper and found a retired social worker named Mrs. Alvarez, who had helped run Iron Haven years earlier. The woman's apartment smelled like tea and old paper, and when Lena showed her Eli's photo, she sat down as if memory had reached out and touched her shoulder. "That boy saved half the kids in that program," she said. "Boy? He was only 28 when he started it. Thought discipline could outrun hunger." A sad smile flickered. "He took in bruised boys, gang boys, fatherless boys. The Vales, Reese, Marcus Bell. Children everyone else had already filed away." Lena's anger fought to stay upright. "They became monsters." "Yes," the old woman said softly. "Some of them did. Then he failed." Mrs. Alvarez took a long breath. "Do you know what Damon Vale was before Eli found him? 13 years old, sleeping in a storage unit, beaten with extension cords by his uncle. Eli paid for his stitches in cash because the boy begged him not to call police." Her voice thickened. "He gave those boys food, coach. Homework tables. Rules about how to speak to girls. Rules about respect. Rules about leaving rage outside the mat." Then what happened? The old woman stared at the window for a long time. "The city cut funding. Eli tried to keep it alive. Then Owen Vale came in with money." Her eyes hardened. "Money always smiles when it wants to own something." Owen Vale, Damon's uncle, promoter, racketeer. The man Kyle used to whisper about like a king. Mrs. Alvarez continued. "They wanted Eli to train older fighters in private. Men with debts. Men who hurt people. He refused. Then he found out the boys had already been pulled into collections, security jobs, underground bouts. By the time he tried to drag them back, they were more loyal to fear than to love." Lena's throat went dry.
And his wife? The old woman looked at her with real sorrow. They came for him one night, at his house. He fought in the driveway while his wife tried to get their daughter out. She drove scared, fast. There was rain. Mrs. Alvarez's voice cracked. The bridge rail gave way before the ambulance could reach her. Lena could barely speak. Daisy saw it? She heard the crash over the phone.
For a moment, the room blurred. All Lena could picture was that little girl on the mat, sobbing into her father's neck, begging him not to become the reason somebody vanished again. Mrs. Alvarez folded her hands. Eli didn't disappear because he was hiding from what he did, she said. He disappeared because every violent man he'd ever tried to save learned his daughter's name. Lena drove straight to Eli's apartment. Second floor, small place, laundry hanging over a chair, one lamp on, children's drawings taped beside the fridge, Daisy asleep on the couch under a blanket with a library book open on her chest. Eli was in the kitchen, rinsing blood from his knuckles. Not fresh blood, reopened blood. He didn't look surprised to see Lena. "You found the old world," he said. Lena stood in the doorway, feeling smaller than she had in years. "I told you to keep Daisy away because I thought you were the danger." "I was." "No." Her voice shook. "You were the doorway. There's a difference." He turned the water off. Silence stretched. Then Lena said the hardest thing she'd said in a long time. "I'm sorry." Eli looked at her for a second, then at Daisy sleeping under the blanket. "I don't need that from you." "Maybe I need to say it anyway." He leaned against the sink, exhausted. "You want to know the worst part?" he said. "It isn't that Damon hurts people. It isn't even that I taught him how." He looked down at his hands. "It's that when he was 14 and still had some softness left, he used to wait after class until everybody else left so he could ask how to stop being angry all the time." Eli laughed once, broken and bitter. Imagine failing a child that completely. Lena stepped closer. "You didn't fail alone." "No, but I'm the one he came back for." Daisy stirred on the couch. In her sleep, she murmured, "Dad?" Eli crossed the room instantly and knelt beside her. "I'm here." She reached out blindly until her hand found his sleeve. Only then did she settle. Lena watched that and felt something inside her give way. Not because he was perfect, because he wasn't. Because he carried guilt the way some people carry religion. Because every part of him still bent toward protecting that child, even when the world had already punished him beyond reason. The betrayal came the next morning. Lena arrived at the gym to find the side door half open and the office trashed. Drawers dumped, laptop gone, hard drives missing. And on the whiteboard in red marker, 4 words: "Bring him to us." Her assistant coach, Mason, was sitting on the bench outside with his face in his hands. At first, she thought he'd been attacked. Then he looked up, and she knew. Mason had been with her for 2 years, good pad holder, decent teacher, too eager for money, too hungry for attention. But she'd trusted him anyway. "I only gave them the seminar file," he said, voice shaking. "I swear, just the video. They offered cash and I thought it was some stupid fight promo thing, some local drama I didn't know." Lena saw white. "You sold that clip?" "I didn't know the kid would get dragged into it." The kid. Daisy. Lena's stomach dropped so violently she nearly folded. "Where is she?" Mason stared at her. "They took her from school," he whispered. Everything after that moved fast and terribly clear. Eli got the call while standing beside Lena in the wrecked office. One second he was listening. The next second, every ounce of blood had left his face. He hung up. "Warehouse 17, he said. Lena knew the place. Riverfront, old fight venue. Same district Kyle used to haunt. "No," she said immediately. "We call the police." Eli laughed without humor. "By the time they arrive, Damon will already have moved her." "You can't walk in alone." "I'm not walking in. I'm going to bring my daughter home." He started for the door. Lena caught his arm, felt stone under skin. "If you go in blind, you die." He looked at her hand on him, then at her face. "Maybe." "Then I'm coming." "No." "You think I'm letting the man who trained my nightmares disappear into one more warehouse without me?" That almost pulled a smile out of him. Almost. Instead, he said, "If anything happens, you get Daisy out first." "And you?" He opened the door. "Today," he said, "I'm just the distraction." Warehouse 17 smelled like rust, river water, and old blood. Damon had lights set up. Not overhead lighting. Spotlights. Like a stage. Like humiliation had been planned. Daisy sat in a chair near the center, wrists zip-tied in front of her, cheeks wet, trying so hard not to cry that Lena's chest hurt just seeing it. When she spotted her father, she broke. "Dad!" Eli moved. 3 red dots appeared on his chest from the upper catwalk. He stopped. Damon stepped out from the shadows, clapping slowly. "There he is." Lena kept low behind a stack of pallets, waiting for the angle Eli had signaled with a glance. Her heart pounded so hard she thought they might hear it. Damon circled Eli like he was admiring old work. "You know what hurt most, Coach? Not that you left. That you left like we were already gone." His voice sharpened. "You made us believe there was still a door out. Then you vanished. I buried my wife because of you." Damon flinched. There. A wound. Tiny, but real. "She died because you chose us over her," Damon snapped back. "You always did. Every time. More boys to save, more fights to stop, more damage to manage." He jabbed a finger toward Daisy. "That little girl got the scraps." Eli went utterly still. Lena realized with a chill that Damon wasn't just trying to hurt him. He was saying the thing Eli already feared was true. Daisy sobbed. "Dad, please." Eli took a slow breath. Then he said, "You want me. Let her go." Damon smiled again, but it trembled at the edges now. "I want you to admit what we are. You're men making children pay for your wounds." "No." Damon stepped closer. "We're what you made when discipline wasn't enough." The first gunman dropped before Damon finished the sentence. Lena launched a steel hook from the pallet stack into the catwalk support exactly where rust had thinned the bolt. The rail snapped. One shooter pitched sideways with a scream. Chaos detonated. Eli moved like something released. Not flashy, not wild. Efficient. Terrifying. He drove forward, turned his shoulder, stripped the gun from the second man before the weapon had fully descended, and sent him headfirst into a pillar with one brutal redirect. Damon rushed in with a blade. Eli caught the wrist, twisted, but didn't finish the break. Still holding back. Still. "Take Daisy!" he shouted. Lena sprinted. Reese Carter lunged from the dark and caught her halfway there. He was bigger than her by 50 pounds, but fear had trained her a long time, too. She dipped under the grab, drove her elbow into his ribs, felt him fold, then remembered the correction from the seminar. Don't turn the hips too early. She waited. One beat, then turned. Reese's knee buckled with a crack, and he crashed screaming onto the concrete. Payback can sound an awful lot like a lesson finally learned. Daisy was shaking so violently Lena almost couldn't cut the ties. "It's okay," Lena said, though nothing was okay. "I've got you." "Dad." "I know." Across the floor, Damon got the knife through Eli's side. Not deep, deep enough. Daisy saw it and screamed so hard the sound tore through the whole warehouse. Eli staggered. Damon grabbed him by the shirt and hissed, "Say it. Say we're yours." Eli looked down at the blood blooming through his shirt. Then he looked at Daisy, and whatever war had lived in him for years suddenly ended. He dropped the weapon in his hand, opened both palms, and said, with blood on his teeth and peace in his voice, "I trained your hands. I never owned your choices." Damon froze, because bad men understand violence. Mercy confuses them. That 1 second was enough. Lena ran him down. Not pretty, not cinematic. They hit the ground hard, scraping across oil-stained concrete, both of them fighting ugly and close. Damon was stronger. Lena was angrier. He slammed her shoulder into the floor. She bit the inside of her cheek hard enough to taste blood. He reached for the dropped knife. Then Daisy screamed, "Coach Lena!" Not help. Not look out. Coach. The title hit something fierce inside her. Lena trapped Damon's wrist, rolled, and used the exact same tiny elbow disruption Eli had used on her the day they met. Damon's base vanished. She took his back, locked the choke, held it. "Tap," she growled. He clawed. She tightened. "Tap." He went still. Silence crashed in after violence, like the whole building had forgotten how to breathe. Then Daisy tore out of Lena's arms and ran to her father. Eli dropped to both knees just in time to catch her. She collided with him, sobbing, holding his face exactly the way she had in the gym. "You promised," she cried. He was crying too now, quietly, helplessly. "I know, baby. I know." Lena looked away for a second, because some pain is too intimate to witness straight on. Sirens rose in the distance. Good. Late, but good. Eli swayed. Lena was at his side before he hit the floor. "Stay with me." He gave her a weak, exhausted look. "You fixed the hip turn." Even then, even bleeding. She laughed through tears she hadn't meant to let anyone see. "You're impossible." "No," he whispered. "Just late." The weeks after that moved slower, as healing usually does. Mason confessed everything. Damon and Reese went away with enough charges to bury a future. The clip that had once humiliated Eli disappeared under a news story no one in town could stop talking about. The quiet, single dad who walked into a warehouse unarmed for his daughter. and the black belt woman who walked back out beside him. But the part nobody posted was the one that mattered. Daisy returning to the gym. The first day back, she stood at the edge of the mat, gripping Eli's hand so tightly her knuckles turned white. Lena walked over and knelt in front of her. "You don't have to come in today," Lena said. "You can just watch." Daisy looked at her father, then at the room, then back at Lena. "In class," she whispered, "do people only learn how to hurt someone?" Lena felt Eli go still beside her, so she answered carefully, "No. The best part is learning when not to." Daisy thought about that. Then, very slowly, she let go of her father's hand and stepped onto the mat. Eli couldn't speak. Lena could tell. Some redemptions don't arrive as applause. They arrive as a child choosing not to be afraid of the same room twice. Months later, when the gym hosted another seminar, it was fuller than before. Different energy. Softer. Stronger. Word had spread, but not in the ugly way either of them expected. Women came because they wanted a place that taught truth, not ego. Men came too, but quietly, respectfully. Some to learn, some to unlearn. At the back of the room stood Eli Mercer, taping a loose glove for Daisy while she tried to bounce without looking nervous. Lena called everyone in. She demonstrated the same wrist escape from that first day. Then she looked toward Eli. The room followed her eyes and murmured, recognizing him now. He started to shake his head. Lena smiled. "Would you help me teach this correctly?" A long pause. Daisy looked up at him. "It's okay, Dad." The whole room waited. Eli stepped onto the mat. This time, there was no challenge in it, no pride contest, no trap. Just two scarred adults standing in the center of a room full of people who needed something honest. He took Lena's wrist gently. "Not force," he said to the class. "Structure." He shifted the angle. "Not panic. Timing." Then he looked at Lena. She adjusted, turned one beat later. Perfect. The room broke into applause, not because it was flashy, because everybody there knew they were watching something rarer than skill. They were watching shame lose. They were watching fear get renamed. And when class ended, Daisy ran across the mat and threw both arms around Lena's waist. "You're not scary anymore," she announced. The gym laughed. Lena looked up at Eli. He was smiling in that quiet way people do when joy still feels fragile in their hands. "No," Lena said, holding Daisy close. "I think I was never supposed to be." Some men teach you how to fight. Some teach you why you shouldn't have to. And the rarest ones, the ones the world almost always misunderstands first, walk straight through the fire, carrying enough guilt to drown in, and still use what's left of their strength to make sure the next person gets out alive. Tell me in the comments, have you ever judged someone before you knew the pain they were surviving?